Is your day going well? Her name was La, a beautiful name given to her by her grandfather. He told her that La meant brilliant sunshine. He wanted his granddaughter to have a radiant beauty, like the sun shining on sparkling river water. He hoped this little girl would have a brighter, happier life than his own wretched daughter. And that wretched daughter was no one else but La's mother. La grew up surrounded by the love of her grandfather and neighbors. Children grow up so fast, even if they lack a mother's love, the kind of affection every child yearns for. But they grow up nonetheless. Grandfather knew his little grandchild was disadvantaged. She didn't even have a grandmother to tell her father about the things a young girl should know, nor did she know what her father looked like. It was the day of Grandma La's death anniversary. La saw her grandfather stay up later than usual. She tiptoed, following the dim light in the night. She saw him sitting on the bed in front of Grandma's altar. He kept looking up at his wife's portrait intently, occasionally whispering something, as if afraid of waking his granddaughter. "How could there be such a foolish and stupid daughter as mine, my dear wife? If only I had convinced her to the end that day, if only I hadn't been so weak, maybe La would have had a mother and a father. If I had pushed harder, my child wouldn't be this miserable now. What do I do now, my dear wife?" Grandfather's voice choked with emotion. La clearly didn't understand what he was saying, but she had never seen him cry before. The man who was always strong and resolute, who always protected and loved her, now appeared so weak before her eyes. In the child's heart, ripples began to form. Childhood was truly over. Grandma La passed away early, and it was grandfather who single-handedly cared for La's mother. When his only daughter tearfully informed her father about the pregnancy, he knew it was the second time he was shouldering the responsibility of being a father. He said it was the second time, but this reluctant father was still as awkward as the first. When the doctor called the baby's father into the room to welcome his child, he patted his hands against his chest. I'm here. "How is my child, doctor?" He awkwardly received his grandchild into his arms, a tiny red baby, still covered in vernix, with a few red spots the size of rice grains. The baby cried incessantly. La was born, like all other children, with tears. Who knew that life could experience such sorrowful moments twice? In that village, people were well accustomed to the sight of a middle-aged man regularly pedaling an old, clunky bicycle, with a little girl in shabby clothes clinging tightly to his back. Everyone in the village knew their family situation, so they took turns helping the grandfather and his granddaughter. A neighbor told La to call her Mother. She said it would help ease the lack of a mother. But the little girl refused. She only had one mother. So where was her mother? That unfortunate mother was once one of the most beautiful women in the village, a pretty girl known for her talent and resourcefulness. Her mother died young, and she lived with her father in a house with a leaky red-tiled roof. On rainy nights, sitting by her father's side, the girl would smile softly. "The sky is a little sad, but why is our house crying, father?" Because the family lacked a wife and mother, the girl had to strive to become a pillar, shouldering the family's burdens with her father. One might think that a beautiful and talented girl like her, if fate had not granted her a complete family, would be compensated with a bright future. But life, alas, is cruel. She fell in love with a scoundrel, deceived him repeatedly, but for some unknown charm or spell, she became miserably infatuated. The strong woman, who usually wasn't like this, cried and knelt, clasping her hands, pleading with that wretched man. He stubbornly insisted on getting rid of the child in her womb, slandering her as a gossipy, promiscuous, loose woman. He left without a trace. The woman went mad, writhing and crying out. That day, it rained too. The tiled roof leaked even more. The soft, wet earth smelling of sorrow mingled with the rain, a bitter scent. Her mother now just lay in the shack outside the kitchen, occasionally bursting into mad laughter in her delirium. But mostly, she cried throughout the day. When she was lucid, she would find her way back to that man's house. La wondered if her mother ever thought of her, if she had a daughter named La. La never accepted anyone else as her mother, but she also never forgave her own mother. She resented her mother. She was furious and felt like going crazy every time her mother went to grovel before that despicable man. She wondered if she had ever wished her mother hadn't given birth to her. If only her mother had just abandoned her, perhaps both of their lives wouldn't have been so miserable. Standing outside, looking into the kitchen shack, it rained that day too, the rain stinging her face until it hurt. La clenched her fists and swore she would never be as foolish as her mother. In that village, many children lived struggling, without a father or mother by their side, just like La. They considered their grandparents and neighbors as their parents. La grew up, enveloped by her grandfather's care, but ultimately she raised herself. An innocent, unknowing child entering life, deprived of the love of both parents, clearly faced far greater difficulties. La married a man from the village and had a child. Having lacked complete love from her own parents, she understood this emotional pain more than anyone else, so she always tried to nurture her small family. Because she poured her heart and soul into this marriage, she was no longer clear-headed enough to discern right from wrong. This man was addicted to alcohol, gambling, and women. The first time she witnessed the man who had once sworn eternal love with her become so depraved, La was devastated. But she thought that for love, for the baby in her womb, he would change. But things did not turn out as she wished. His nature was hard to change, he remained as he was. Even now, for the sake of her child having both a father and a mother, she still gritted her teeth and endured the beatings, the slaps that felt like they came from the sky, and the curses. But as soon as he sweet-talked and apologized a few times, La would forgive him completely. Once, he got angry and left the house. La had to go to him, kneeling for hours outside the gate just to see him and beg him to come home. La was repeating her mother's scenario from back then, now only able to go back to her grandfather's side to weep and sob. Her grandfather was very old and frail. He could only sigh and advise his granddaughter to just try and endure until her child grew up. How could one blame a man who had bowed his head his whole life, now knowing nothing else to do but sigh and cry by grandma's altar every night? Her name truly foreshadowed her fate. She had never seen the brilliant sunshine her grandfather wished for her. Lament tears, and she saw her life overflowing with them, making onlookers feel bitter and indignant. How could anyone discard all self-respect and beg for a bit of that charity-like love? What era was this, to be so pathetically infatuated with a lover? They would cluck their tongues and shake their heads. Oh, why such a pity? If you don't love this one, love another. But they didn't understand that in life, anything can happen. There are not a few people who suffer in love, and scientifically they are called love addicts or codependent in love. Psychologists also state that love addiction often stems from childhood traumas. Specifically, one of the main causes is a craving for a mother's love. Most love addicts have distant relationships with their mothers. They long for unconditional maternal love but did not receive it in childhood. Furthermore, a mother also represents emotions and affection. When sad, a child is hugged and comforted by their mother. When happy, they are praised and made proud by their mother. From this, the child learns to express and show emotions. The mother plays a role in spreading love, gentleness, and coolness in the relationship with the father and the family. This teaches the child lessons about love through observation and feeling. They will gradually form concepts of love and how to react to it. When a mother is absent, both literally and figuratively, the child feels like an outsider, leading to a lack of self-confidence, and the child finds it difficult to trust their own emotions. In the process of growing up, the child tries to compensate for this craving for a mother's love by attempting to fill the void with love, thereby becoming attached to someone and unable to break free. They will encounter problems in intimate relationships and project seemingly irrational thoughts and actions, and sometimes they may even consciously realize that it is not good, yet still be unable to change. This is the mother wound, which can be defined as a lack of connection between mother and child from an early age. Earlier interactions with the mother form our attachment patterns, and these play a role in shaping intimate relationships. Under the influence of these attachment patterns, children will organize and choose their behaviors, anticipating others' reactions to decide what they should do. The noteworthy point is that after growing up, this attachment pattern becomes internalized, making us not consciously perceive it. We will only pay attention to what we want to pay attention to and ignore the parts we don't want to see. For example, La might only focus on not wanting her child to live without a father and mother, as she once had to endure, thus ignoring her husband's wrongdoings. She only focused on the love she once lacked, unaware of the foolish actions she took to bow down and beg for a bit of affection from a toxic relationship. Unconsciously, she became the very image she once hated. So what will she do? The terrible things that once happened are now repeating themselves. Will she not escape this miserable, vicious cycle? And what about her child later? In truth, things are not so bad. First, each of us needs to understand that no childhood is perfect. Some are just worse than others. Some people may have felt lucky to have a happy childhood, free from abuse, bullying, or abandonment, but in reality, during that growing process, the child within us was broken many times. It's not until they begin to continuously explore themselves and their root family that a hidden truth slowly reveals itself. The reality is, a bad relationship between us and our parents does not predetermine us to repeat the same mistakes. The key, as researchers point out, is our attitude towards the experience, or in other words, our conscious attitude. At this point, we begin to observe our own behavior, recognize the underlying reasons behind each action, and learn how to adjust them. Specifically, in relationships with parents, this means that when we have conflicts with our parents, we can accept all of our true emotions and understand why we have those feelings. What truly determines how we live is not entirely our past experiences, but our understanding and knowledge of those experiences. Understanding the mother wound is not about us wallowing in blame or resentment towards our mother. With knowledge of our mother's wounds, we can name our own troubles, and at the same time, find ways to heal and bravely seek the happiness we deserve. That day, after signing the divorce papers, La felt a lightness in her heart. For some families, stubbornly insisting on having both a father and a mother is precisely what prolongs suffering. Returning freedom to each other can sometimes be the way to restore love. La lacked the affection of both her father and mother, but she was fortunate to have the love of her grandfather and kind neighbors. The child within her recognized and rebuilt her own image of a mother and a father. In life, who can predict anything? The first steps in her life were not paved with roses, but La's future will be just like the original meaning her grandfather once intended to convey.